Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radhe. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nittai Gaura Haribo, Haribo. Haribo, Gaura Haribo. Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Grantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, text number 12. Is it number 12?
Yes.
Maitreya Ravacha. Priyaya Priyamanvichan. Kadamo Yogamastita. Viyamanam Kamagam Kshatas. Tayeva Virachikarat. Maitreya Ravacha. Priyaya Priyamanvichan Kadamo Yogamastita Vimanam Kamagam Shatas Taryeva Virachikarat Maitreya Priyaya Priyamanvichan Kadamo Yogamastita Vimanam Kamagam Shatas Tahyeva Virachirakat. Maitreya Vacha Priyaya Priyamanvichan Kadamo Yogamastitaha Vimanam Kamagam Kshatas Taryeva Virachikarat. Maitreya Vacha Priyaya Priyamanvichan Kadamo Yogamastitaha Vimanam Kamagam Shatas Taryeva Virachikarat. Maitreya Vacha Priyaya Priyamanvichan Kamano Yogamastitaha Vimanam Kamagam Shatas Taryeva Virachirakat. Okay, word for word translation. Please repeat. Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya, Uvacha, said, Priyaya, of his beloved wife, Priyam, the pleasure, and Vichan, seeking, Kardama, the sage Kardama, Yogam, yogic power, Astita, exercised, Vimanam, an airplane, Kamagam, moving at will, Shata, Ovidura, Tahi, instantly, Eva, quite, Avirachikarat, he produced. Translation. Maitreya continued, O Vidura, seeking to please his beloved wife, the sage Kadama exercised his yogic power and instantly produced an aerial mansion that could travel at his will. Please repeat. Maitreya continued. O Vidura, seeking to please his beloved wife, the sage Kadama exercised his yogic power and instantly produced an aerial mansion that could travel at his will. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Wow, that looks pretty heavy. I don't think that's too. I'll put it on just.
That's all they had.
Hare Krishna. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here the words yogam astita are significant. The sage Kadama was completely perfect in yoga As the result of real yoga practice, there are 8 kinds of perfection. The yogi can become smaller than the smallest, like our audience. A lot of people today. Greater than the greatest, or lighter than the lightest. He can achieve anything he likes. He can create even a planet. He can establish influence over anyone, etc. In this way, yogic perfection is achieved, and after this, one can achieve the perfection of spiritual life. Thus, it was not very wonderful for Kardama Muni to execute a mansion in the air according to his own desire, to fulfill the desire of his beloved wife. He once created the palace, which is described in the following verses. Om Agyantam Randasya Gananyanan Shlaka Chakshram Manatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhastam Stapam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So, Kadama, he wants to satisfy his wife because she served him very nicely, so he can do things which ordinary people can't do. He's a great yogi. And so he creates this mansion in the air. Now here Prabhupada talks about the different types of mystic yoga. Asta Siddhi, there are 8 yogic perfections. And actually this is all described in the 11th canto. Krishna describes the mystic yoga system. So I'll read a few of the verses. The Supreme Person. Huh?
Starting which
11th canto, 11:15:1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Uddhava, the mystic perfections of yoga are acquired by a yogi who has conquered his senses, steadied his mind, conquered the breathing process, and fixed his mind on me." Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord Achyuta, by what process can mystic yoga be achieved, and what is the nature of such perfection? How many mystic perfections are there? Please explain these things to me. Indeed, you are the bestower of all mystic perfections." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "The masters of the yoga system have declared that there are 18 types of mystic perfection and meditation, of which 8 are primary, having their shelter in me, and 10 are secondary, appearing from the material mode of goodness. Among the 8 primary mystic perfections, and the 3 by which one transforms one's own body, are anima, becoming smaller than the smallest, mahima, becoming greater than the greatest, and lagima, becoming lighter than the lightest. Through the perfection of prapti, one acquires whatever one desires, and through prakamya siddhi, one experiences any enjoyable object, either in this world or the next. Through ishta siddhi, one can manipulate the sub-potencies of maya, and through the controlling potency called vashita siddhi, one is unimpeded by the 3 modes of nature. One who has acquired kamavayasita siddhi can obtain anything from anywhere to the highest possible limit. My dear gentle Uddhava, these 8 mystic perfections are considered to be naturally existing and unexcelled within this world. The 10 secondary mystic perfections arising from the modes of nature are the powers of freeing oneself from hunger and thirst and other bodily disturbances, hearing and seeing things far away, moving the body at the speed of the mind, assuming any form one desires, entering the bodies of others, dying when one desires, witnessing the pastimes between the demigods and the celestial girls called apsaras, completely executing one's determination and giving orders whose fulfillment is unimpeded. The power to know past, present, and future, tolerance of heat, cold, and other dualities, knowing the minds of others, checking the influence of fire, sun, water, poison, and so on, and remaining unconquered by others. These constitute 5 perfections of the mystic process of yoga and meditation. I'm simply listing these here according to their names and characteristics. Now please learn from me how specific mystic perfections arise from specific meditations and also of the particular process involved. One who worships me in my atomic form, pervading all subtle elements, fixing his mind on that alone, obtains the mystic perfection called anima. One absorbs his mind in the particular form of the Tattva and thus meditates upon me as the supreme soul of the total material existence, achieves the mystic perfection called Mahima by further absorbing the mind in the situation of each individual element, such as the sky, air, fire, and so on. One progressively acquires the greatness of each material element. Anyway, he goes on for quite some time. And then at the end, Krishna says, okay. My devotee becomes unconquerable by meditating on my opulent incarnations, which are decorated with Srivatsa and various weapons and are endowed with imperial paraphernalia, such as flags, ornamental umbrellas, and fans. A learned devotee who worships me through yoga meditation certainly obtains in all respects the mystic perfections that I have described. For a sage who has conquered his senses, breathing and mind, who is self-controlled and always absorbed in meditation on me, what mystic perfection could possibly be difficult to achieve? Learned experts in devotional service state that the mystic perfections of yoga that I have mentioned are actually impediments and are a waste of time for one who is practicing the supreme yoga by which one achieves all perfection in life directly from me. Whatever mystic perfections can be achieved by good birth, herbs, austerities, and mantras can all be achieved by devotional service to me. Indeed, one cannot achieve the actual perfection of yoga by any other means. My dear Uddhava, I am the cause, the protector, and the Lord of all mystic perfections, of the yoga system of analytical knowledge, of pure activity, and the community of learned Vedic teachers. Just as the same material elements exist within and outside of all material bodies, similarly, I cannot be covered by anything else. I exist within everything as the supersoul and outside of everything in my all-pervading feature. Okay. So 11th canto is very interesting. Huh?
That's great.
Yeah. So if you haven't read the 11th canto, it's wonderful. It's almost my favorite, actually. 11th canto is amazing. So the devotee is not interested in mystic yoga. Devotee, Prabhupada explains how even all animals have some mystic power. Like cows can produce milk. So Prabhupada one time gave the example that you could give a scientist tons of hay, tons of grass, but he won't produce any milk. Similarly, a vulture can see, Prabhupada said, for 8 miles or something, they can see a dead animal, and then they all gather around and eat the dead animal. And a dog has very powerful sense of smell. And also, Hawkeye. Hawks have very good vision. So all animals, they have some mystic power. But of course, we're not trying to necessarily have that kind of mystic power to produce material things. Devotees are trying to develop love of Krishna. That is the greatest achievement, Krishna Prema. And also to try to bring others to Krishna. So one time in Vrindavan, there was a magician, and he was doing some magical tricks with the devotees, and some of the devotees didn't like it. He wanted to do something with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, okay, fine, you can do it. So he got a coin, and then he had it in his hand, and then it suddenly appeared in Prabhupada's ear, somewhere or other. So he was quite impressive. And so, Prabhupada said, but see what I have done. I have transformed these malechas into devotees. So this is the power of a pure devotee. They can, just like a alchemist can turn bell metal into gold. There's a process of turning bell metal into gold. You have to swallow mercury, which kills you. And then you urinate on bell metal, and it's supposed to turn into gold. So actually, Isaac Newton, the famous scientist, he was an alchemist. He was trying to do this, but he wasn't really successful. Krishna didn't give him the power. But Isaac Newton, who's considered to be practically the greatest scientist ever, at least according to Western estimation, he said that every discovery he's made has been an answer to prayer. He said, when I wander on the vast shore of knowledge and I find one little pebble of knowledge, then this is all due to my prayers. So Isaac Newton, he was a strong Christian. But so Prabhupada, he said, this is my magic. I've transformed these malechas into devotees. So the mystic yoga perfections, one time Prabhupada also said that one of his German godbrothers has said, what is the use of all these mystic yoga perfections? Because the materialists, they're already able to do these things. They can enter into stone with their machinery. Of course, that was like 50 years ago. Now, they can do even more than that. They can send satellites here and there, and they can bomb places from Kentucky, places in the Middle East, just by looking at some computer thing. They can do pretty amazing things, but at the same time, they can't conquer birth and death. That's the main problem, you see. So there are many examples of mystic yogis. There was one great, what was his name? Subari Muni. That Subari, he could live underwater because he didn't want to look at women. He thought that if he lived under the water, he wouldn't see any women, and then he wouldn't have to get married, etc., and get entangled. But unfortunately, he saw some fishes copulating, having sex, and his mind became disturbed. So then he had to get out of the water and try to find a woman. And then he saw the daughters, or one daughter of a king. You know the name of the king? Anyway, there was a king, and he had some daughters. And so, Subari Muni, he went to the king. He said, you're the king. It's your duty to find me a wife. So the king didn't want to displease the sage. So he said, if one of my daughters will marry you, you're welcome to marry them. So then Subari said, okay. But, the king was very confident that none of his daughter would marry him because he was all covered in barnacles. He was all wrinkled up, had been under the water for a long time. Not too sexy. So then he transformed himself. He was a mystic yogi. He could make himself very beautiful. So he made himself very beautiful. And then all the daughters of the king, they wanted to marry him. So, he married 12 daughters, I think. Mandata. Okay, Mandata. How many daughters did he have? 11 or 12 or something. Anyway, he transformed himself, but then he felt dissatisfied again afterwards. So, there are so many examples of mystic yogis in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. But of course, Krishna is Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanodara, Chatra Shri Jurvayo Nitya. What's the last line? He says, wherever there is, Sanjaya said, wherever there's Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there's always opulence, victory, morality, and extraordinary power. So wherever there's Krishna, there's extraordinary power. If we think of some of the things Krishna did Krishna, he's the master of all mystics. So he could transform a hunchback girl into a beautiful woman. And then in the previous verse, it was talking about how, maybe it was the verse before, how, Prabhupada's talking about how they would decorate the home to stimulate erotic desires, and they would have certain scents. It's like in the spiritual world. They have certain beautiful scents. It's Mario. Wow. They would have certain scents, to make the atmosphere very beautiful. So even Kubja, she is described in the Krishna book, Prabhupada describes it, that she decorated a home with very beautiful erotic pictures to try to attract Krishna. Because he didn't become attracted by that. He became attracted by her devotion. So, Krishna's only attracted by love. And so Kubja, because she was selfish, she wanted Krishna to stay with her. Because Krishna said, I couldn't do that. Krishna's got so many other more beautiful lovers. So, Prabhupada, he wanted to transform the world. So, we're not really interested in mystic yoga, but Prabhupada's main goal, if we see his life, he was like a mystic yogi because he slept very little. And if you think about what he did in 11 years, from when he first came to New York till when he left the planet, when he was 82. Okay, so he wrote about 4,000 letters. He gave 2,000 lectures. He wrote 70 books. He traveled all over the world 14 times. So, he was the greatest mystic. He could do all this. And it's very interesting because Srila Prabhupada, we know that most of us probably know the story of how Srila Prabhupada was really struggling alone. He was telling his disciples, this is later on when he came to America, he had some disciples. He was telling his disciples, well, you never know what's going to happen in life. You should never become like morose or depressed, because Krishna has a plan. So he was saying that, before I came to America, I was in Vrindavan, and I was going through different difficulties. It was very hard. I was attacked by a cow. I didn't have any money. No one was interested in what I was saying. And, somehow or other I came to America, and now I have so many sons and daughters. So we don't know what Krishna's plan is. Krishna's very mystical. And so we might think that Krishna consciousness is very small, but we don't know Krishna's plan. We see that the way Krishna consciousness is expanding. It's very interesting because I'm from the UK, and there are many beautiful cathedrals in the UK. I've got pictures of one. It's called St. David's. St. David was a Wales is part of Wales, if you don't know, a part of England. So he was a vegetarian, and he had some mystic powers. So they built this beautiful cathedral called St. David's. It's a very impressive building. And all the ceilings are beautifully designed and just very nice. So, but people don't go there to worship God anymore. So the churches in the UK, England was very pious at one time. They built some very beautiful buildings, beautiful cathedrals. Canterbury Cathedral, Durham, they're very impressive buildings, but nobody really goes to church anymore. So why is that? That even though Christianity only began 2,000 years ago, already the churches are empty. But in India, we see that, for instance, in Delhi, they have 17, I think that's what Garanga told me, they have 17 custom-built temples, which have just been built in the last few years. And then you go to Tirupati. Tirupati is a famous temple. Balaji, apparently, according to Shiva Ramaraj, he was told by the authorities, the people that run the whole complex, because he's very well organized. He was going there to see how to organize his Hungarian yatra. It was very expertly done the way they... Anyway, so people are queuing up for hours on end to go and see the deity Balaji. And apparently Balaji's been there for millions of years. So this is the difference between, real religion and sort of, fourth-class religion. Prabhupada called it fourth-class religion. That people are still so enthusiastic to see the deity. And even when you get into the temple, if you go to Tirupati, you can only see the deity for a few seconds. And then you're pushed over and you have to let someone else in. So anybody who thinks that Krishna consciousness is from the devil, when people are giving everything up to worship God, and they're sacrificing so much. See, some of the temples in India, they're worth so much money. There's Ranganath, is a very, very wealthy temple. See, in India, India has more gold than anywhere else, actually. India has more gold than anywhere else. So the president of the temple in Tirupati, what's his name? He's on the GBC executive board now. He's a very nice devotee. I've met him a few times. So he was saying that, what's his name? Anyway, he was saying that there's one temple in India that has so much wealth, it's all locked away. No one dares touch it because it belongs to the deity. But if they took it out and sold it, they could give every Indian $1 million. That's what he said. So, but the real wealth of India, of course, is the knowledge. Knowledge. Because knowledge is, if you have knowledge, you have power. So Prabhupada gave the example of a king who had some ministers, and he was, some of the underlings were complaining, why is the chief minister, you give him so much respect? Why is he so special? So then the king said, okay, I'm going to show you why. So he said, I want you to tell me how much this elephant weighs. So he got an elephant, and they couldn't figure out how to weigh the elephant. And then the chief minister, he put the elephant on a boat. And, the boat sank down a little bit into the water. And then he got some grains, which he knew the weight of. And he put the grains on, and gradually, when the grains sank to the level of water the elephant had sank to, he knew how much the elephant weighed because they were equivalent to the amount of grains. So intelligence or knowledge is strength. So therefore, that's why devotees should study. Because Prabhupada said that if you don't read all my books, you'll become weak and you'll give up Krishna consciousness. So he said, there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which says that just as men need grains to be stout and strong, men and women. That if they don't get enough, then they become weak. So similarly, you know the verse? So similarly, if my disciples and followers don't study all my books, they will bloop. So we have to study all the books, because then you have knowledge and you have power. And so Prabhupada, he was trying to say to the magician that, you can do so many magical tricks, but creating Brahmins, that is the greatest achievement, because, you're saving people from material life. So in one purport, in one verse in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam 10th canto, there's a verse, I can't remember the whole verse, Ye suryamrita dambesha himsaman vivajitaha, which was quoted by Nanda Maharaj. So Nanda Maharaj, he quoted this verse because Krishna was attacked by the cart demon. Krishna was attacked by many demons. So the cart demon, Shakatasura, so Krishna kicked it and destroyed it. But Nanda Maharaj was very concerned because all these demons kept coming to attack Krishna, and they had mystic powers, like Putana. She became very beautiful. She was an ugly witch. She flew on a broomstick, but she became very beautiful. So she could get into the inner circle to give Krishna her milk. But so there were many demons, and so Nanda Maharaj, he said, we need to get the Brahmins. We need to get the blessings of the Brahmins. Of course, another thing they did, of course, just to emphasize the importance of cows, why, cow protection is so important, is that they got the dust from the hoof of the cows, and they sprinkled it on Krishna's body, and they got the urine from the cows, they put it on Krishna's body. So cows are very special. They have some very dear to Krishna. Actually, you all know I have cows. And if you taste the yogurt from my cows, I'm sure Krishna cows is a lot better. But you know why Krishna loves cows? Because the yogurt is so wonderful. Of course, the milk products. So Krishna, he loves the yogurt, he loves the butter. But in this verse, Nanda Maharaj says, we need to get the blessings of the Brahmins to protect Krishna. So he said, when Brahmins are free from envy, free from false pride, and he said their blessings never go in vain. So then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says how he wants to create a class of Brahmins to give their blessings to everybody. Because by the blessings of the Brahmins, people can actually free themselves from material life. So Prabhupada, he wanted to create a class of Brahmins so that we can actually become, ideal and guide people back to the spiritual world. So it's not easy finding people who are interested in spiritual life, but there are some very nice people I've met in Washington Square Park. I go there every day. So, I meet a lot of nice people. Yesterday I met a girl. She was very nice. I met so many nice people. But this girl, she had tattoos. She had barbed wire tattooed on her body. She had a lot of tattoos, but it looked kind of cool in a way. She was good looking. She was nice, And, when I went up to her, she said, "Oh, yeah, this is so interesting. I love this." And then, I was talking to her. I talk to people for a long time. I don't just sell them a book. And, if they want to talk, I'll talk for half an hour, whatever. I don't care. So she gave me a nice donation. And then I went off to somebody else and I met another really nice Colombian girl. She was super sweet. And then I was looking at the other girl with the barbed wire tattoos, and she was reading the Bhagavad Gita. And, she was reading the introduction. I went up to her. I said, "Wow, that's amazing. You're reading the book. That's pretty unusual. You're reading the introduction." And so she said, "Yeah, it's really interesting. I like it." She's very unusual, looking. You wouldn't think she'd be interested in reading Bhagavad Gita introduction, but she really was. So, so Prabhupada, his mystic power was to take malechas and turn them into Brahmins. So this is, of course, much more beneficial than having some mystic power, because mystic power is very selfish, it has no benefit. So Srila Prabhupada, he created ISKCON to change people's hearts. And this is the mood of every great devotee, because in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, in the 5th canto, there's a very nice verse by the residents of Jambudvip. It goes, "Svastyasta vishvasya kalaprasitam dhyayanti bhutani shivam matodi daya. Manasya bhadram bhajatad ahadokshaje aveshatam no yo metarapya hoitaki." This is a very nice verse. So the residents of Jambudvip are praying, headed by Prahlad Maharaj, S-V-A-S-T-U, Svastu Vishvasya Kilaprasitam. He says, may all envious persons become pacified by taking up devotional. Let there be good fortune throughout the universe. May all envious persons become pacified by taking up devotional service, because if they take up devotional service, they will automatically think of each other's welfare, and thus they will become satisfied. So this is the residents of Jambudvip. This is the consciousness of civilized human beings, because later on in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam, when Krishna is talking about the Varnashram system, another verse, he says, Himsa Satya Mastaya Makama Kroda Lobata. He said, it's the duty of all members of society to be non-violent, to be truthful, and to work for the benefit of others. So this is Krishna's words. And another mystic power of a devotee, a genuine devotee, is that they're not afraid of anything. Because in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam it says that if one is afraid of death, then it means that all your studies and all your austerities have been a waste of time. That Dhruva Maharaj, he stared death in the face. So, we shouldn't be afraid of death. In fact, we're all going to die. We don't know when we're going to die. There may be some pain involved when we die. We don't know. Everybody has different arrangement from Krishna. But I was listening to a talk by Radhanath Swami. He was talking about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was in a lot of pain. He had this cancer. And it was very intense. And so, he was crying in pain. And he wanted Radhanath Swami to be with him until he left his body. They all thought it would be in a few days' time, but actually it turned out to be 2 months later. But towards the end of it, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was shedding tears And he told Radhanath Swami, it doesn't get any better than this. So I don't know exactly what his consciousness was, but there's another devotee who was, what was her name? She was Scottish, from Scotland, and she got brain tumor. She was dying. She wrote a book. Shiva Ramaraj told Balabhadra, her husband, to write a book about how when she was dying, she was having all these visions that she was a young girl, like a 14-year-old girl, and she was serving Radha and Krishna. And, she had several experiences where this was happening because she lost consciousness. So, and then, Parikshit Maharaj, he says, Tiraskrita vipralabda shapta shipta hatarapi nasyatat pratikurvanti tad bhakta prabhavopihi, which is an important verse. It says, the devotees are so tolerant and forbearing that even if they are cursed, neglected, blasphemed, killed, they're never inclined to avenge themselves. So this is, devotees have knowledge. Therefore, they know that whatever happens is simply Krishna's arrangement for them, and that they should never be disturbed in any situation, which isn't so easy, but that's the goal. So we're trying to become devotees. Becoming a devotee is a lofty status. It's not so easy to be a devotee. If we look at the mood of a real devotee, we see it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj, he says so many times, he says, I beg the permission of all my readers that I take the dust from their lotus feet. Anyone who reads this book, you can imagine not everybody that reads the Chaitanya Charitamrita is an ideal devotee, but I beg you, please give me the dust from your feet. And he said, Jagai Mare Hoite Muni say Papista Purishara Kito Hoite Muni say Ligista, that I am more sinful than Jagai and Madai. I'm lower than the stool, the worm in the stool. And Prabhupada said he actually meant it. So to be that humble, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he declares that, he's so sinful that he's happy when he sees others suffer. So this is humility, that he's such a degraded person. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's such a saintly person, but he's saying that I'm happy when other people are unhappy. How can we understand this? So, anyway, we are trying to become devotees. We're not interested in mystic power. Kadama Muni was a great devotee, and he renounced it all afterwards, and he produced a wonderful son, Srila Kapila Dev. There's many chapters in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam about Lord Kapila Dev's teachings, very important personality. So, we don't have to worry about creating an aerial mansion or anything. If you have to get married, you should marry someone who's simple and easily satisfied. I live in a $13,000 mobile home. Cost me $13,000. But I do have land and cows. So anyway, so devotees' only goal is to please Krishna. Krishna is not interested in mystic power. He's interested in Sankirtan, increasing the chanting of the holy name. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any questions? Comments?
What was the reference verse of that one you quoted about devotees, even if they're abused or neglected, etc., they're never inclined?
That's Parikshit Maharaj speaking. Yeah, What's the, not sure how, I can't even remember the verse now. Tiraskrita vipralabda shapta shipta tarapi nasya tat pradikirvanti tad bhakta prabhavopihi. Is that got all the verses in the Bhagavatam?
Yeah, first time.
Nasya, no. No, I've forgotten it. What did I say? What is the first word? Do you remember?
No, that verse.
Was it twasta? No, something with a T.
It is 1:18:40.
What is it?
1:18.
What's the verse?
Can you say it?
Tiraskrita.
Traskrita.
Tiraskrita vipralabda shapta shipta tabi. Yeah.
1:18:48.
So, I had
Yeah.
just giving some references for things you mentioned. So, Mandata, was it? The king?
The father of...
He had 50 daughters.
50.
I looked it up,
50.
50 daughters. And then the verse from the CC is Madhya
Huh?
Lila. The verse from the CC is Madhya Lila, chapter 25, verse 278.
Which verse is it?
That's the one that men
that
become
one.
strong and stout by eating sufficient grains. But the devotee who simply eats ordinary grains but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna gradually becomes weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, one drinks but a drop of nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom, and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. And then Prabhupada, in his short purport, what he says, all the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they would simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they would miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. So, appreciate
How
it.
did you find that?
I just looked it up. Because I remember eat, sleep, and fall down. So I just
I
searched
see.
eat, sleep, and fall down. That's what I do. And I was thinking, Prabhu, why is it that it seems, at least I've noticed in my interactions with people, that people think that the mystic perfections are spiritual. So then, or a lot of times people think by taking, mushrooms or LSD, they can have a spiritual experience. So how do we, what's your response to these things?
Well, it's just the mind. That's, you see, I explained, because a lot of people say that, Yeah, most of the people I approach are that kind of people. I look for them.
There was one time a reporter that asked Srila Prabhupada, what he thought of LSD. And Prabhupada said, it's not of any value, it has no spiritual value. And the reporter said, well, have you ever taken it? And Prabhupada said, no, but all my disciples have, and they have given it up.
I always say to the Christians, I always say to people that the Christians need to take LSD. The Christians need to take LSD, at least 20 trips. Because they're very, kind of narrow-minded. They're not, LSD, I'm not saying everybody should take LSD. But when people are closed-minded, I think LSD is good. It's good, it opens you up. So I say they need to take 20 trips, the Christians. I mean, yeah, I took LSD. I mean, it does. I'm not saying everybody needs it. Some people don't need it because they're already open-minded, but some people definitely need it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask about when you said that Prabhupada felt, I don't know if you said happy, but like when others were suffering, like can you retouch on that? What do you mean?
About what?
When like you said something about Prabhupada and what he saw himself as, well, he was very humble, of course.
Oh, back to no Thakur. What about him? Just something about him?
No, well, then you said when he saw others suffering.
Yeah. No, he was just being honest. I mean, maybe he saw somebody, I don't know. I mean, it's just what he said. It's hard to explain it. But, you know, it is the mentality of people that we're happy that we're not the ones that are suffering. You know, if we see somebody who's you know, got no legs or something, we're happy that we're not them. So in that sense, you know, you're thinking, I'm better off, or, you know, you're happy you're not suffering like that. So, I mean, he was a pure devotee. He was a 100% pure person. So, you know, he's just being honest that maybe he feels a tinge of happiness that he's not suffering like somebody else. You got any comment, Maharaj?
Well, there's no word for it in English, but in German it's Schadenfreude.
Oh, yeah?
That's the word for happiness at the distress of others.
Yeah. Okay, Hare Krishna. Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Welcome back, Mario.
He came yesterday. Yesterday we were for lunch.
No, he didn't come yesterday.
He was here for lunch.
He was here for lunch. I gave him an earful the other day about his father.
Yeah, I was also going to say, I forgot to mention this, but in Tirupati, when Srila Prabhupada went,
Yeah.
when anytime he would come for darshan, they would clear out the darshan room and they let him stay for as long as he wanted.
Really?
It's a really long thing. Prabhupada went to South India. So you just see like how much respect they had for Srila Prabhupada.